Welcome. Today's practice, Tai Chi practice, has the purpose of bringing about for you a sense of wellness, a sense of well-being, improvement in your stability, your balance, your tranquility. There are many other benefits to the practice of Tai Chi. Tai Chi is an old system, an ancient system. It's about 1,000 years old. It comes from China. And it's a system that originated in the martial arts. It's now used almost exclusively as a form of exercise. Characteristic to Tai Chi are movements that are slow, they're gentle, and they're circular. Paramount to this practice is safety. So please, before you begin your practice, look around, be sure that the floor around you and the space around you is clear enough for you to move around in. You'll want to wear footwear that is non-slip and has a nice flexible sole that is secure to your foot, or as I'm doing, you could also do this shoeless. I wouldn't recommend socks in that socks can become slippery on some floor surfaces. Also, while you're practicing, please work well within your comfort zone. And what I mean by that is if there's any movement that is uncomfortable, then back away from that movement or stop immediately. Working well within one's comfort zone means at the most 90% of what is comfortable to you. What I'd like to share with you about Tai Chi is that it has been around for several hundred years, almost 1,000 years at this point, and it is primarily a martial art that is now used as a system for exercise. The movements are circular, the movements are slow, the movements are gentle. The benefits of Tai Chi include harmonizing the connection between your mind and your body. It includes adding more stability to your structure. Balance improves, your flexibility improves, your general sense of well-being improves with the practice of Tai Chi. So let's get started. What you can expect today is a warm-up, the learning of several forms that we will group together in what's called a form set, and then finally a cool down. Take these pieces a few at a time, practice them, pick up information about what I'll call the principles or some of the essential principles, and apply those to your practice. It is in the application of the principles that you'll find the benefits of Tai Chi. So let's begin. With your hands low on your abdomen, below your belly button, maybe about 3 finger widths. Bring your attention or your focus to a space behind your hands in the center of your body. And begin to soften. Soften your knees, relax your shoulders. Exhale fully. And upon exhaling fully, allow your body to take a breath that's so full and so deep you can feel it all the way down in the palms of your hands. I'll refer to this over the next hour as belly breathing or deep breathing. This sort of deep breathing relaxes the body. Let's begin by warming up our necks. On your next inhale, your arms float. Turning your palms toward your face, gently imagine pushing the bones of your face back. It might feel like you stand a little bit taller at this point. The palms turn. And then if it's comfortable to your neck, your eyes follow your fingertips down. We'll repeat each of these 3 times. Exhaling as you gently push the bones of your face back, adjusting your posture so that you feel the most vertical. The second neck warm-up will bring both hands, palms facing one another, up to about shoulder height or chest height. Your shoulders are relaxed. Looking into one palm, doesn't matter which one, the other one to the floor or to the earth. Will follow, eyes following one hand so that the vertebra in your neck gently rotate. We return to the center, palms pass. Looking into one palm, the other palm reaches down to the earth. Gently expand with an inhale. And finish with an exhale. And paying attention to the vertebra in your neck at this point. Loosening, lengthening. Perhaps even moving slower than you're used to. I encourage you to stay curious about that, moving slower than you're used to. Now bring your mind's eye down to your shoulders and we'll begin to loosen the shoulders with 3 small circles, one direction, slow as you can go. Eventually, these will be smooth circles. Once you're done with 3, then reverse those circles. Small, slow, steady. Continuing to breathe. It's quite normal sometimes to stop breathing when we exercise. The practice of Tai Chi will encourage breathing. I'm going to widen my stance, but please widen yours if that's comfortable, for our second shoulder warm-up. Soften your knees. We'll add a little more range of motion to the shoulders. If you'd like to, add a sink and rise, lowering subtly. That can be a part of this practice as well. And once you're done with 3, we'll reverse these circles, inviting a breath of fresh air and settling down, relaxing. And now that you've gathered more information about your neck and your shoulders today, we're going to bring attention to the spine. One hand below, one hand above, almost like you're holding an imaginary ball. The bottom hand traces your vertical posture, turns toward the sky. Then imagine your spine as a piece of elastic and gently stretch in both directions. Bring both hands around the sphere, the bottom hand ready to trace your vertical posture. Gently stretch. Tai Chi movements are characterized by circular movements. You may find your arms feel like they're moving circularly, rotationally, like you're spiraling. And the second spinal warm-up, holding this sphere in front of the lower abdomen area, you're going to be turning with your abdomen, first toward the direction of your top hand, then turn this sphere over and carry it the other direction. Your torso, pelvis, chest, head, all moving as one unit, directed by your lower abdomen. Often that area of the body in the practice of Tai Chi is referred to as the dantian. Now that we've warmed up the spine, we're going to shift from our weight being supported on two legs over to supporting the weight, your weight, in one leg. We'll do that by reaching the empty leg, as it's called in Tai Chi, forward and back. So that's what the legs will do in this warm-up. And the arms counter. It's quite all right to stop in the center, to regain your balance if you need, before reaching back. This warm-up gives us a chance to pay attention to our hips. How do your hips feel today? What sort of information are they giving to you today? And once you've completed 3 on one side, we'll lay the empty leg, the empty foot down on the ground, and then purposefully, consciously shift weight to it. You might find that your standing leg is asking for a little bit of a break now. And continuing with the warm-up of your hips. You bring to this a nice, tall, gently stretched spine. Your vertical posture. Good. Our second hip warm-up practices weight shift. And I'll use the terminology again, empty step, empty step. And once all of your weight is on one leg, the empty leg moves about a foot distance out and back in. And when it settles to the ground, then it's ready for you to begin pouring your weight into the other side. There's a sense of gliding, of smooth, slow, steady movement. Now that we've brought the attention from hips down to your knees, we're heading to the knees for the first knee warm-up. We'll bring an empty leg forward, the toe touches down, the opposite fist punches. Toe touches down, the opposite fist punches. Eventually, if you'd like, the empty leg can hover. One of your knees stabilizing you, the other one gets to relax. One more each side, paying attention to your knees. The second warm-up that we'll use for the knees invites an empty step slightly forward and a little bit wide. You want a good base before you begin shifting weight. We'll partially shift about 60% of the weight into the front leg and punch with the opposite fist. Send all of the weight back to one leg and come back to your nice wide stance. We have a nice wide step forward. Doesn't have to be a deep step. Shallow works. We're practicing weight shift. We'll use this a little bit later in the hour with one of our forms. You may have noticed that moving slow brings about a resistance of its own. And that's part of the practice of Tai Chi. Flowing like water in a river against a gentle current. From the knees down to your ankles. We'll bring the hands back to the dantian or to your lower abdomen and loosen up the ankle, opening up the back of the ankle and then the front of the ankle. Just loosening one ankle and switching sides. Paying attention to how you're moving, what you're moving is part of the Tai Chi practice. It brings about a relaxed mind, a focused mind. The second ankle warm-up invites a lifting of the inner arch and then a lifting of the outer arch. So this is the navigation system that your foot uses when you're traversing uneven terrain. As you practice this warm-up, paying attention to your ankles, you've got all of your weight on one leg, lifting your inner arch, lifting your outer arch. And finally, connecting foot to hip, toes in, and toes out. You may notice your hands as you're breathing deep. Follow your dantian as it turns one direction and then the other. The deep belly breathing that you're practicing here is building energy. The practice of Tai Chi then is moving that energy. Good. Give everything a shake. And then if you happen to be practicing with anyone else, give your fingers a wiggle, walk around the space, take a look at the others that are in the space, smile, make eye contact. Yeah. So from our warm-up, we're ready to learn some form sets. We'll learn these in one form at a time. And I'll demonstrate the form first. Then we'll break it down into small pieces, give you a chance to practice it, and then we'll run the entire form. We'll add a new form on and do the same. So to begin the Tai Chi practice, we'll start with the salute. The salute is a soft right fist that stands for strength. Your left four fingers pulled together for friendship, for community. The left thumb drawn down for humility. Strength, friendship, humility. The first form that we'll learn is called open hands, close hands. Open hands, close hands comes from the hands hanging down by the side, coming up to just in front of the heart, opening to about the width of your shoulders, coming back down to about the width of your head. Open hands, close hands. We're going to use that as our commencement form, so that will bring a beginning to our form set. So to start with, joints are relaxed, your knees are soft, your spine vertical, your hands about hip width apart. And after a full exhale, you commence with arms floating. You may recognize that from one of the warm-ups. Elbows soften, fingertips come toward you and rotate upward. So that's the beginning of commencement. Let's practice that again. Commence. Your knees are already soft at this point. And if you'd like to, once your fingertips turn high, if you'd like to add a little bit more depth, if you'd like to move your dantian a little closer to the ground, you can do that. As long as bending your knees to that degree is well within your comfort zone. Sort of like picking a height that you're going to move at. So, let's run through commencement form into open hands, close hands. Commence. Oh, good. Let me add a few more details to that before we move on to the next form. What I'd like to do once we get up from the commencement into open hands, close hands, is mention all of the essential principles that you can apply to this form, open hands, close hands, and all of the other forms you do. I use these essential principles during the warm-ups, during the cool-downs. I use them when I walk in the park. I use them to calm myself as I move through my house, when I find myself tense. It's the application of these principles that enhance the benefits of your practice of Tai Chi. So once again, commence into open hands, close hands. The first open hands, close hands flows smoothly, slowly. Your movement steady. And as you get ready to do it again, then add a gentle resistance as though you're moving in water. Or there's something between your hands that gives a gentle resistance to your closing your hands. Take a couple more like that, flowing smoothly against a gentle resistance. Beautiful. Let's move on and add another form. This form is called Fair Lady Works the Shuttles. Fair Lady Working Shuttles. Let me demonstrate it for you. From open hands, closed hands, Fair Lady Working Shuttles. So I'd like to break this down into pieces for you. We'll start with the legs and the feet. The very first piece is a weight shift into your left leg, freeing up your right leg. So your right leg turns into your empty leg. And with that weight shift, the dantian or your abdomen turns slightly to the right, allowing the empty right foot to pick up, and then just reach down comfortably. Foot lays down on the floor empty. The next part of the footwork is a partial weight shift. The back leg pushes, sending about 60% of your weight into the front leg. And when you're ready to return at the end of the form, the front leg pushes, bringing all of your weight into the back leg so your right leg can return to where it was. So follow me for just the leg work now. Fair Lady Working the Shuttles. I'm going to put my hands here, have something to do with them. One of the principles that you can work with when shifting weight is to shift with a vertical line. It helps to lead with the belly. That helps to keep the spine vertical. Beautiful. Let's add some arms. The hands come from the closing of open hands, closed hands. The right arm rotates up to your comfort level. You want your shoulder to be comfortable here. The left hand points away. Fingertips are pointing in toward your midline. One hand is higher than the other. Fair Lady Working the Shuttles. Practice that with me. You might find your body turning slightly to the right as you do that. Your eyes, your gaze looks in the direction of your hands. So let's put it all together. Fair Lady Working the Shuttles. It's a step with the right foot, a partial weight shift, a full weight shift back to your standing leg, to your left leg, and a return to the position, closed hands. Again. And one more time, softening, loosening your joints. Beautiful. It's a nice expansive move. From there, add one more open hands, close hands. Extend the arms out for a closing, and we'll return back to where we started. So we've learned a couple of forms. Let's put those together. In a practice that you can call Tai Chi for balance. Commence. Open hands, close hands. Fair Lady Working the Shuttles. Open hands, close hands, and follow on. Repeat that section as many times as you need to until you feel comfortable moving in a relaxed way. When you're ready, add on the next form. The next form is called Waving Hands in the Clouds. It comes from closed hands, both palms toward your body, almost like you're embracing an imaginary second part of you out here in front. Your right hand in front of your heart, your left hand in front of your lower abdomen. Upon hands taking this position, you'll slightly turn to the left. Let me demonstrate what one waving hands in the clouds looks like. We'll repeat that move 3 times, but let's break it down. First of all, the footing. So far to this point, we've stepped out with an empty step for Fair Lady working the shuttles, played with a partial weight shift, and stepped back. This time we'll move side to side with waving hands in the clouds. Comes with a weight shift, just like before. We'll step a little bit wider than where we were, shift weight, and step in narrow. So I want to talk just a little bit about the stepping. We've mostly been standing in a fairly narrow stance, about the width of 2 fists. When we step toward the right, you'll pick the empty leg up and move it out just about the width of a foot, the width of your foot. Shift weight, and then move the other foot in about the width of a foot. So we're moving to the right, not fast, and not far. So that's 3. If you would practice that with me, we'll use our hands on the abdomen for right now. Waving hands in the clouds, empty step, weight shift. It's a conscious weight shift. It's almost like pouring sand from one leg into the other. There's a gradual emptying, a gradual filling. Continue to breathe as you move. Now let's add some arms. From open hands, close hands. Bring the right hand to the heart, left hand to just in front of your lower abdomen. The hands drift to the right. Your hands will drift to your left. You'll carry them around to your right. And about the time you get ready to switch hands, we'll take the top hand and give a wave. Bring it down below in front of your abdomen, and the other hand moves up to your heart. It's like giving yourself a hug on the way around. And just before you get ready to carry this shape back to the right, you give a wave. So practice that with me. Turning toward, just about the time you begin to turn away, you give a wave. And give a wave. Take a couple more. Your gaze follows your hands, head and torso, moving as one unit. You're comfortable. Fluid. Good. Now let's put both of those together. From open hands, closed hands, waving hands in the clouds. As you shift weight, you've carried your arms over to the right. You replace the foot before you wave. Shift weight. Move one foot first, then wave, then transfer your weight. I like to think of it in 3 parts. Eventually it all flows together, but footing first, then the hand, and then the carry, the weight shift. Set your base, hand change, weight shift. Good, let's resolve that. So now we've got a slightly longer form set to practice. Let's run through that a couple of times. Once with me facing you, and then I'll turn with my back to you. And that may help with the left and right side. Tai Chi for balance. Commence. Open hands, close hands. Fair lady working the shuttles. Open hands, close hands. It's a great place to remember to breathe. Waving hands in the clouds. Open hands, closed hands. Follow on and give yourself a finish. Good. I'd like to take time to run that back on so that you might follow me as though we were practicing together. Tai Chi for balance. Commence. Open hands, close hands. Fair lady working the shuttles. Open, close. Waving hands in the clouds. From open, close, follow on, give yourself a finish. Nice. Good. Once you've practiced that and gotten comfortable with that, then reverse it to the other side. Let's go through what that would look like. We've finished with open hands, closed hands. Fair lady working the shuttles will look like this to the other side. So let's add a few more details to this. You've gotten to choose along the way the height that you're carrying your dantian above the ground. It almost feels like it hovers. Your knees are soft. They don't have to be terribly bent. You definitely don't want them locked. Those soft knees, and then you get to decide the height of this hover. As you work with the footing for Fair Lady working the shuttles, you shift weight, you maintain or hover your dantian at the selected height. The empty leg steps slightly forward. The toes are slightly angled to the corner. It'd be your own corner of a box that's around you. The weight shift then feels like a glide. You keep your dantian or your abdomen at the same height until about 60% of your weight is in the front leg. You glide back, paying attention to partial weight shift. So adding the arms, one curves up, the other one curves out. One a little higher than the other. So once the hands take their position, your arms take their position, there's a gentle push or an extension. It almost feels like you're expanding. Let's put both of those together. Fair lady working the shuttles to the left. We'll practice that a couple more times. Fair lady working the shuttles to the left. And one more time. Paying attention to stepping out with an empty foot. And only when that foot says it's ready for weight do you begin pushing with the back leg. When you're ready to shift weight back, the front leg pushes. It's in places like that where I can feel how Tai Chi strengthens my legs, the base of the body, foundation. Nice. So let's put that whole sequence together with both fair ladies and the waving hands in the clouds to the right. I'm going to add a couple of extra details as we do this, beginning with a slightly more narrow stance. Your feet are closer together than what we've practiced so far. You don't want them so close together that you feel unstable, so you decide where that is in terms of your width. When we commence, we'll shift weight over to one leg, and it'll be your left foot that steps out. You recenter your weight before coming up for your first open hands, closed hands. So let's add that piece in as we go all the way through what we know so far. Tai Chi for balance. Commence. Settle in, relax, open hands, close hands, focusing on your movement. Fair lady works the shuttles. Moving in a relaxed, easy way. From open hands, closed hands, to waving hands in the clouds. There isn't anything to get right in your Tai Chi practice. We're practicing and repeating for progress. Strength, stability, all of those pieces improve incrementally. From open hands, closed hands, we'll add on fair lady working the shuttles. Feeling the gentle expansion. Always give yourself a follow on and a finish. This time we'll bring the left foot in for the salute. So practice that again and again and apply each of the principles as you learn them and deepen them to continue to receive the benefits of your Tai Chi practice. The final form that we're going to add in is waving hands in the clouds. You already know this form, traveling to the left. Let's review that. Always start with the footing first. We're going to shift weight to the right this time in order to free up the left leg. And for now, I'm going to keep my hands out of it. The invitation to move your spine vertically in between your legs until all of your weight is in one leg. The right foot steps in just a little bit. You still want there to be about 2 fist widths distance between your feet. One more time with the footwork. Empty step left. Empty step right. And then let's put the hands with it as we know them so far. From open hands, closed hands, like you're embracing yourself. This time you'll turn in that embrace a little bit to the left. Carry the embrace to the left and back to the right. But just as you start back to the right, you give a wave. Change hands. One floats up, the other comes in and embraces below. It's almost like holding a baby. Carry to the right. Just about the time you start to come back to the left, you give a wave. The hands change. Practice that a few times with me. Yeah, shoulders soft and relaxed. Your arms sloping down from your shoulder. It's your lower abdomen doing the work. We'll put the footing in, and I want to add one more detail, and that can be about how your breath can support you. From open hands, closed hands, waving hands in the clouds, traveling left. Turn to the right, both hands embrace. Your left foot steps out. And we shift. You get your new footing, that narrower stance. Switch hands, transfer weight, set your footing. Set your footing, switch hands, shift weight. Practice a couple more of those with me. Footing, hands, weight. Nice and easy. One more. Just like before, we'll resolve to open hands, close hands. Give yourself a follow on. We've added the piece of the left foot stepping in for the closing. Good. Let's run that whole form set together as we know it so far. Take your time with each of the pieces. We'll run it first front on, and then I'll turn around and practice with you with my back on. Tai Chi for balance. Commence. Let's practice together again. Tai Chi for balance. Commence. One of the benefits of this practice is to bring stress relief, to achieve a tranquil mind. And it's quite often that our mind is busy with the next thing we have to do or the worst thing that happened before we came to class. And any time that your mind wanders away from what you're doing, gently bring it back to paying attention to your movement. Practice this form set every day or a couple of times a week to mark improvement. At the end of each practice, cool down, giving your thighs a tap, acknowledging that they've carried you at a lower level throughout this entire class. They're likely a little bit tired at this point. And then squeeze as many muscles as you can find in your body, from your feet through your hands, arms, back, face. Inhale at the same time and relax. 2 more times. Might even lift the heels slightly. And finally, bringing the sky down to the earth. A full exhale settles you, allowing your body to inhale. May your practice serve